This will unfold faster than you ever imagined. So what are the next steps? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I have a very serious video to get into today. We're going to look at some information that, quite frankly, a lot of people do not want to hear. The first thing is inflation history. We're going to go back all the way to ancient Greece, ancient Rome. I'm going to tell you some information about what had happened. It'll be brief, okay? Then we're going to look at number 2, responsibility. Who's responsible for the actions that we see today? And number 3, we're going to talk about what's coming. What's coming next? You need to know this. Let's begin. The first thing I want to talk about today is ancient Greece. If you see in this article, and of course as documented basically everywhere, what they did going from empire to a worthless currency, you see that in part they went towards the exact same thing that ancient Rome did. And that was they went outside their borders and they outsourced their food production. Now they had to do this in order to feed their population. They mentioned it here. They had low quality soil. They had to go out. They needed an abundance of food. You had a growing empire. And so this, in fact, was a problem for them as different areas were taken over. As they lost control of these areas, suddenly they lost control of the food supply. That same situation happened with ancient Rome. You could see this article gets into all of the different aspects of it. They went into places in North Africa and they had the food production, the food supply, the logistics all planned out. It was working until they were taken over. And they're just mentioning that here towards the bottom. Now, if you want to read the whole history, which I absolutely do recommend. I had read about this in a few books previously, just showing you right here the history. Now, you might be asking, what's the point of this? Why do we need to care about this? Well, we see the same actions taking place today. We outsource everything we have. And this is all just fine until there's a supply chain disruption, until you've got issues along the way with one country or another. And suddenly the products that they were producing, giving to you at a cheap price are no longer available or no longer available at that price. You have less control. Timing is an issue. There are so many factors here, okay? It's not just about that. But the point is, their currencies, we're talking about empires, were completely valueless at the end of the road. Completely valueless, and at a time when not that long before it, this was, as I said, an empire. They had everything. Now I'm going to get into some information right here that, quite frankly, is going to upset a lot of people. If you are easily upset, if you are unwilling to accept the truth, I would ask that you please turn the video off and you visit my channel in the next day, and you will have to ignore this one. I'm telling you right now in advance. If you are unwilling to accept what I have to say, you're probably not going to want to hear this one, I assure you. This type of information can get me booted off. This type of information is generally not accepted by the vast majority of people. If you want to be able to be sure that you're going to get my information, the only way is to get on the insiders. This is my way to get to you directly. It's a very serious topic for me, of course. And I think that for a lot of people, they take it for granted because a channel is there today. It's not there tomorrow. If you want to sign up, it's completely free. This is my way to get to you directly through email. I'll send you the video of the day, and all you got to do is sign up for free at the moneygps.com. You remember what happened with Weimar Germany? This lady here burning marks because why? They were completely valueless. They had no value. And this article here out of Reuters is simply telling you how fast the dollar was losing its value throughout this period of 1965 to 1970. US bonds lost 36% in real price terms in 5 years. Annual consumer price inflation more than tripled in the period to 5.9% from 1.6%. Look at where we are today, and look how quickly things can happen. People are not ready. They are not ready. But it can't happen here, GPS. It wouldn't happen here, and it never will. Well, let's take a trip back to memory lane. You're looking at the continental currency. You may have heard of this before. In the US, this particular currency and one other was completely valueless at one point. You see that? And you see this here too. I wanted to show you some symbolism that was here. Take a look at this. I'm going to pull out the highlighter for this one. And you will see for yourself. Time and time again, we see the symbolism. Oh, that's nothing, right? Not familiar? No worries. You don't even have to know what that is. Let's look at this. This happens to be, and all of these that I'll show you here, part of this continental currency that became absolutely worthless. Ah, here we have something very similar, just missing the top of that pyramid, right? On top of that, there are 13 here, of course. You know the number 13. Very important number for them. And then we go further. Again, continental currency, the all-seeing eye, 13, the black cube. A lot of people don't like this. That's okay. Again, same symbolism right here. And again, there it is. Let's go a little further. Same situation, just drawn in. And so you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I don't need to hear about this. What does this have to do with, what tickers to buy? Should I buy GameStop? Should I buy AMC? That's really all I care about. And what we're talking about here is a lot more serious. So already, I'll tell you right now, 50% of the people are gone. Got hate comments all over this page, and generally the views will be low. But I tell you this because of how important it really is. This happens to be an article about the Rothschilds. They're just one name, one of the more popular names for those who have done their research. And you can see right here, the Rothschilds are the most famous banking family in history. In the 19th century, they lent money to kings and governments and funded both sides in the Napoleonic Wars. When you look at this and ask yourself, they were funding both sides of the war. They were funding governments and funding kings. And now today, you basically don't hear about them. Where are they? Where's their influence? But you see, on the currency itself, the symbolism of all of these bloodlines is there. They make it known. They hide it in plain sight. And for those who are willing to accept it, the truth is there. This happens to be just a chart that I want to show you. It's European royal family tree, West. And you just go through. Obviously, the font is going to be way too small for you to see. If you want, links are all in the description. And you go through. The point I'm showing you here is that you see people from 1,000 years ago, and you follow the connections. Every single country is connected. The families are intermarrying, and you see their connection to both politics and finance, not to mention every other industry. And you see it all forming, and then you ask yourself one question. What's coming next? What does this all mean? Let's talk about that in a second. Where does that bring us? Is it the CBDC, central bank digital currency? Well, I don't know. But I do know that a new monetary system is coming. We've been hearing about this for a very, very long time. Some have suggested it would be like the IMF SDR, special drawing rights. It would be possibly from a supranational entity. But look at the tentacles of the system and understand that it gets into every single pathway and crevice and nook and cranny. But you won't see it if you're unwilling to accept the truth. Now, I'm going to talk about how to actually prepare as an investor, as a person. We'll get into that in the Money GPS Insights. But I wanted to highlight here what we can see happening. We are headed towards a crisis. We know that. We absolutely know that. But many have suggested, wrongly, mind you, that the Federal Reserve and the other central banks around the world are trying to prevent a crisis from happening. And that could not be further from the truth. Oddly, I see that comment every single day. And generally, the analysts and those in the industry agree with this, that the Federal Reserve is trying to prevent a collapse. Now, that is, of course, the mainstream view. And if you look at what their actions that they're taking and what they're saying, clearly they're trying to say, oh, we're trying to have a soft landing, we're trying to create, stable growth and all these things. That's the surface level. You go one level deeper and understand, look, these businesses, how they operate, and of course, the central banks being businesses, they are there to appease the shareholders. No different than any major corporation, whether it's Nike or Starbucks or anything else. They are there to appease the shareholders. And you look at what potentially we could be facing here is a new monetary system that looks much worse than anything we've ever seen. I don't want to speculate on exactly what will happen, exactly how it will unfold. I don't know that. But what I do know is that if you are unprepared, you are going to be smacked in the face and you will be seeing stars. That's the key. That's what you need to understand. If you research it and you simply spent an hour or two, you would find out enough information to realize that you could say to yourself, okay, this is getting hot and heavy. What do I have to do? So let's look at that right now. Let's get serious for a minute here in this Money GPS Insights. The first things first, real assets are essential. No questions asked. Number two, one that people really take for granted is that you need to have multiple streams of income. You can always have a primary source, but you need at least one more source of income. This is essential more now than ever before. And number three, self-sufficiency will help you to weather the storm. This goes on all different levels, whether that's having some of your own or all of your own food supply taken care of, your water, perhaps your electricity, and so many different things that people take for granted every single day. But if your currency becomes worthless or worth less, then if you have certain things in place today, you're going to be much better off when things get worse. And as I showed you in the United States alone, not to mention all these different countries out there that have dealt with hyperinflation or are dealing with serious levels of inflation today, that you will be so much better off if you simply take the steps today to get that all sorted out. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say. Okay, I think it's so important for people to do, and yet we take it for granted. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to check out the Insiders. It's available at themoneygps.com. Hey, last thing, check out this video if you haven't seen it already. I'll see you there.